Let's Science is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
3, 2, 1.
We live in a universe of scientific wonders.
Every day, scientists are inching towards breakthroughs which can change our lives.
We're playing our small part in sharing these wonders with you.
That's why today is a fine day for science.
So let's science.
You may have heard in the news recently that the United States and a coalition of other countries will now set a standardized time for the moon. The moon will have a time zone. So I'm looking forward to the idea when this does happen. Though we're still not there. We've still got some time to go before they sort all of this out, because there's actually a lot of science that will need to go into this. I would like, you know how on your watch or your phone you can set different times of the world, so you can have your time. Yeah, I've got Malta time on my watch, so because
I've got Malta time in the Philippines time, just in case.
Can you imagine you've got all these times and then you have moon time as well, like standard moon time. I can't wait for that. I reckon that's so cool. So
it would still make sense, but maybe 50 or 100 years from now, we'll be able to live on the moon.
Yeah.
So if you have a relative or a family friend who lives on the moon, making sure that you text them, not at 1 o'clock in the morning, moon time. Yeah.
You need to know when moon time is so that your friends on the moon, that when you text them, you don't accidentally, 3 o'clock in the morning. It might be 12 noon for you, but it's not for them. They're trying to have their moon snooze. They've got a busy day the next day. So here's what I'll do very briefly. Now, it's 4 pages long. I'm not going to go through all of it, but there was a memorandum for the departments and agencies participating in the White House Cis-Lunar Technology Strategy Interagency Working Group. So basically, they've been directed by the President of the United States. So it says here the memorandum outlines the Biden-Harris administration's policy to establish time standards at and around celestial bodies other than Earth to advance the national cis-lunar S&T technology. So the Science Department of the United States has directed federal departments and agencies to align their planning and policies with this memorandum. The approach to establish time standards consists of the definition, development, and implementation of a distinct reference time at each celestial body and its surrounding space environment. Each new time standard developed will include the following features. 1, traceability to coordinated universal time. So the UTC on Earth, right? So the universal sort of time.
Yeah, we have
coordinate time. Yep.
Is it?
So it needs to be traceable to the current system that exists on Earth. So with all of our time zones, it needs to be adaptable to that. Number 2, accuracy sufficient to support precision navigation and science. So it's actually related to navigation in our solar system and the moon and so on. So coordinating navigation and science that happens as well. 3, resilience to loss of contact with Earth. So if for any reason the moon internet went down or whatever.
Yeah, that's true. It may sound funny, but it makes sense.
Yeah, but moon time wouldn't be lost. It would still have its own independent, time. And also scalability to space environments beyond the Earth-Moon system, which I love. I love that. It's so cool. So essentially, what's going on, Lino, is they want, first of all, there to be a standard moon time that works in conjunction with Earth's universal coordinated time.
Wow.
And eventually, as humanity branches out to the rest of the solar system, you'll have Mars time and the moons of Mars time.
Moons of time. Oh, wow. We're going to have a lot of,
So I just wanted to clarify as well. So it's about moon time. It also says cis-lunar time as well. So cis-lunar is any space outside of the moon which is affected by the moon's gravity. So the moon's sphere of influence of its gravity. So that time period would also include the moon's orbit and beyond to where the moon's gravitational pull ends, or where we think it ends. So it wouldn't just be on the surface of the moon, but it would also be in the moon's space, if that makes sense, the space the moon occupies.
Yeah. Have we measured rotations of planets and how many, have we done that already? Is there more days
Well, we know how time works because of the expanded orbit. So the further they are from the sun, the longer it takes for them to go around the sun. So therefore, the length of days and the length of years and so on other planets is affected.
Yeah.
So you can imagine, you can imagine the math and the science that's going to have to go into creating a time zone for the moon, let alone other planets as we go on. All right. So,
oh my goodness me.
However, two things. One, luckily it's not our problem, Lino. And secondly, the first job is to get it right for the moon before they look anywhere else. They have to get it right for the moon. So basically, the countries in all of this coalition and the different space agencies, they want what's called an LTC, or Coordinated Lunar Time. That's what it's going to be called. So, we've got Eastern Standard Time and all the others. So the moon's one will be called LTC, and it will apply to the whole moon. So there won't be time zones on the moon. It will be the whole moon, and again, like I said, the cislunar, or the space that the moon occupies as well. And from national agencies such as NASA, the European Space Agency, JAXA, and all these other ones, and the Chinese Space Agency, whose name I forgot, and Russia and all these other ones anyway, these are going to ramp up big time now. And also private companies as well. Don't forget, we've got SpaceX, eventually Amazon will have its Blue Origin, and all these other companies. They're also going to be ramping up their moon missions as well. So there needs to be a common reference of time. Otherwise,
that makes sense.
Yeah, otherwise what will happen is there'll be a whole lot of confusion. So it says here, confusion from small inconveniences to much graver, more dangerous problems, such as mapping inconsistencies, navigation errors, and so on. So an unnamed White House office source says, imagine if the world wasn't syncing their clocks to the same time, how disruptive that might be and how challenging everyday things would become. So it would be a complete nightmare. So they need to do this now because, as we said, moon missions are going to ramp up. So the White House is giving NASA until the end of 2026 to implement the final standardized time system, which it says must have 4 qualities, which I've already mentioned. So, and the reason for this is so that precise scientific study, spacecraft landings, self-sufficiency, like I said, in case the contact with Earth is lost, and scalability to the rest of the solar system need to reference this moon time standard. And the moon time standard will reference Earth standard. So a lunar time standard will enable better communication between spacecraft, data transfers, landing, docking, navigation, and so on.
Yeah, so that makes sense.
Yeah, it's all.
When we were talking about it before, when we do able to fly but rocket from Earth to moon, it's like you're waiting at a terminal and you'll say, it's Tokyo time.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
And then you have to make sure that you get to Malta or
as far-fetched as that sounds. In reality, at some point, travel to the moon will become a normal thing, because this isn't just about missions to the moon, but this is about permanently establishing a human presence on the moon as well. So you will need a departing at whatever time. And when this eventually, this might not be in our lifetime, who knows, but when it becomes commercialized and there's affordable moon
tourism,
you'll need all of that. You know what I mean? So your spaceports will need to have the board with the numbers that flip and what time. And
exactly. It may sound silly.
It sounds silly and far-fetched, but they're doing it. They're doing this right now.
They have to do it because of course, we'll talk about supply chains and transport and logistics.
Yeah.
Moving things back and forth and everything. These transporters need to know to get there. I'll be surprised Uber will be around.
Uber Moon.
Uber Space.
Yeah, Uber Space. Yeah. Now, actually think about this, right? And now there will be businesses doing courier stuff to the moon and back.
Exactly.
100%.
Exactly.
You know what I'm thinking as well, in being Catholic podcasts, the first church on the moon. You know what I mean? And
there you go.
And considering what we're talking about, maybe the first moon cathedral. Can you imagine? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Sounds silly.
The first stone.
Yeah. It sounds silly,
stone.
But let's keep this in mind.
Catholics,
it's not. It's and Christians will be going to the moon at some point for work reasons, whatever it might be. With lots of Catholic and Christian astronauts have already gone to space, right?
Exactly.
They'll need a place of worship.
Yep.
100%, right?
Yep.
So I'm not being far-fetched or silly.
It will happen.
One day where this is going to have to be a consideration.
Definitely.
Yeah. So now what it says here is, the moon will have just one time zone and no daylight savings. However, yep. Even though that sounds simpler,
I'm not going to say I don't like daylight saving. Is it just like
it seems like they don't think it's necessary. However, this is still a difficult project for NASA officials and scientists because it says factors like mass, not church mass, but like the weight of the moon and gravity. Yep. It affects how time passes as well. So, for example, an example to consider is that right now on Earth, the gradual redistribution of mass or weight due to melting sea ice is forcing scientists to reconsider how we keep time here on Earth. So,
yes, I've been letting a little, not say rumors, but maybe seasons may have to change in different parts of the world.
Who knows, right? Because mass and gravity
affects,
does affect time. So that's a scientific consideration. So on the moon, a smaller body where gravitational pull is much weaker, time moves more quickly and unevenly. So lunar time gains around 58.7 microseconds per day compared to Earth time. And even this can vary depending on the altitude and longitude of where lunar clocks may be located. So this is a pretty challenging thing that needs to be done. So the Artemis program, which we've celebrated, which is sending astronauts to the moon and then eventually to settle there, it's sending astronauts to the moon, so the moon landing, around September 2026. All right. Now, that's actually not a lot of time in space travel.
When you think about it, I know it's 2024, but years fly.
Yeah, and this is a few months before the deadline to implement LTC, or Moon Coordinated Lunar Time. So later missions, as we know, part of the Artemis mission will be to establish a lunar base, and the lunar base will eventually be geared towards ensuring flights to Mars because it's actually easier to launch a rocket from the moon to Mars than it is from Earth to Mars. It's actually more efficient.
That sort of makes sense.
Yep. So other countries are also planning on populating the moon. China has announced a 2030 target for astronauts to go to the lunar surface, and India by 2040. And they won't be the only ones. There'll be others at some point as well. Now, China and Russia haven't signed on to the Artemis Accords for this just yet. So it remains to be seen if these countries and others who aren't participating will also adopt LTC or not. So there's still some work to do there as well. So
definitely, yep.
So that all of the officials, however, do recognize that there does need to be a lunar standard time, whether countries are part of the Artemis Accords or not. So manager of NASA's Space Communications and Navigation Program told The Guardian an atomic clock on the moon will tick differently at a different rate to a clock on Earth. And he says it makes sense that when you go to another body like the moon or Mars, that each one gets its own heartbeat. So there we are, Lino. Sorry, Lino. A lunar standard time. Yeah, sorry.
I love your dog.
Lunar. Yeah, I know. I got all these L's in my head. Yeah, it's a big L for Lindsay. So there we have it. It's not just a novelty or a gimmick to establish a lunar time.
It's definitely not.
Yeah.
No, it was like quickly. It made totally sense because when time is for us to colonize and move from planet to planet, we will need this. We will need this, and also there'll be Mars's
standard time,
maybe
and
standard
Mars
time
will have to have time zones. I'm assuming it's a much bigger.
Exactly,
body,
they would have a time zone on their side.
A much larger planet.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I must admit, man, goodness me. I can imagine going to Mars. You'll have to shoot out from Earth, stop by the moon.
Yeah.
Maybe
it's a bit of a journey.
A few.
So you're going to have a layover on the moon. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, yeah. It is a huge journey.
A moon over, as we call it.
And then have a bit of a bite to eat and watch it. And we even stay there on the moon.
Check out the sights. Check out the Catholic Cathedral on the moon.
Exactly. And also, I don't know how Mars will hold on. It's that's going to be interesting. Building something there, but
that's a whole other. Yeah, well, I'm sure they're thinking about it and designing, but that's a whole. I mean, they've got to get people there first. That's the first step.
Exactly, that's a step by step. Exactly,
to safely get humans to Mars and back to Earth again that's a
huge thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's Science is brought to you by StarQuest Media and is a fortnightly podcast that brings you the scientific wonders of our universe from a distinctly Catholic point of view. For more from Caroline, Lindsay, and friends, listen to the StarQuest show, Catholics of Oz. Find links from today's show at sqpn.com/science and find the Catholics of Oz at sqpn.com/Oz. Be sure to follow the show in Apple Podcasts, Google Play, wherever you can find podcasts, or on the SQPN YouTube channel. The generous donations of our patrons at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue Let's Science and all the shows at StarQuest, which makes our nonprofit mission possible. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. Join us next time for more scientific wonders, and thank you for listening to Let's Science on StarQuest. Here's another show on the StarQuest network you're sure to enjoy, Pray Station Portable. Find it wherever fine podcasts are found, or at starquest.fm/PSP.